Hi there, everyone. I'm Michaela Gombalova. Today we will talk about web development. I'm really happy that I can today give you some insights about web development. It's a real cool field. I really love it. A huge shout out to Women Tech Network and Anna Radulovsky, who gave me the possibility to, talk about this topic today. And I'm really happy and look forward to really let you know this topic and really be sure that you know something about it and that maybe you want to learn something. So let's get started. A little bit about me. Who am I? I am a certified computer science operator. Currently, I'm working as a professional receptionist at the Free University of Bolzano. So I'm not really working in tech. Hi, Selena. Hi. But I'm currently a self-taught web developer aiming to become a full stack in the European market, American market. It's independent. I just want a job in tech because I really love tech. It's something I'm really passionate about. So I really hope in the future to get a job in the tech field. You can see here my Twitter handle and my LinkedIn profile. I posted it also in the chat. So feel free to connect with me. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. We'll be happy to connect and to collaborate with all of you. Gone too far. So what is basically front-end web development? It refers to the client side of a page. So it's basically what the user sees at first when interacting with a web page. Maybe if you're going to Facebook, to Google, that's the front-end side. That's this, I call it rather design side, because you really see it's the first impulse you have from a website. It's basically built every site with three main core technologies: HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. Only JavaScript is a programming language. The other two are not a programming language. The first one is it's HTML5. The 5 stands for the version, the currently version of it. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a markup language used for structuring the web page. So for putting down the first layer of the web page when you're programming it. Then you have the CSS3, that's, like the style. You use it to, like make things look pretty, like tables, like make headers, and so on. It basically stands for cascading style sheet. The 3, like I said, for HTML is the version of it. It's a core technology used in the styling and formatting of web page, like I said. JavaScript, it's the only technology that is a programming language. It's a dynamic programming language because you can like program dynamic things on the web page, like making a image gallery or making maybe date and time that, like updates, like every day automatically without that you are interacting with it. So it's basically an interactive language, and it's used for web development and others for game development, for other programming, for mobile development, for backend. We'll see that later in the backend section. And like I said, it allows us to implement dynamic features on web pages. So here you can see an example of HTML5. The whole element, when you like have a paragraph, or for example on H1, for the header you have from H1 to H6. H1 is the biggest one, H6 is the, like the smaller one. And you have the content inside, what you put inside of it. Here we have, for example, a paragraph. It's called my paragraph. Maybe if we would show up this code on a web page, it will just appear my paragraph and the 3 dots. We have an opening and closing tag, but not for every HTML element, because there are HTML elements that are self-closing, like BR tags, link tags, image tags, and a few other ones. In HTML, we use mostly 100 tags, not so many. There are 150, if I'm not mistaken, but we use at least 100 of them. Here you can see just some classes. And the class, it's going to make an element unique in the HTML. It's used basically to make an element unique for the styling purpose, and also the ID. The ID is like in the databases, we will see that later. It's like you use it especially for one element to make, maybe if you have a paragraph that you want to design specifically for something that will stand out from the page, you have to use an ID. We have CSS tree. Like with HTML5, you have a selector. That's the P selector for the paragraph in this example. You have the curly braces, and this is the property because I'm going to give it a property value that's red. So in this case, our paragraph that we've seen in HTML will be red. And this whole thing with the property and property value, it's called declaration. And CSS3 is a really powerful language. We can make a lot of, designing purpose and really make really cool sites that are just made with CSS. There is no need, to work with, framework and so on to make a really wonderful site. You can really just make really cool site just with CSS and HTML, and obviously JavaScript for the dynamic interaction. Some JavaScript. Okay, here I will show you some really basic stuff. A const is a constant it's another name for a variable. A variable is basically a box where I can put something. In this case, it's title, okay? And I give this title, a content of JavaScript made easy. So this is a function, console.log, and this function, if this function runs, it will give me the title, and the title will be JavaScript made easy because it's the content of the variable title. So it will give me the console will give me this result. We can also try. You don't see the console on the web page. You see the console only if you go to the developer tools in Chrome and Mozilla. I can show you that later if you want to. And there you can see the console where you can test these kind of things. So we're moving on to backend development. Well, what is backend development basically? It refers to the server side of an application. It's made basically of three parts: a server, an application, and a database. We can see it here. We as users can't see the backend work, but the code, what's working in backend, is that what communicates the database information to the browser and gets back to us with a response. If we are just an example, if we are looking here in the browser, we write, I don't know, YouTube maybe. Okay, we are going to search for YouTube. It's going to make a request to the web server and to the database where the information is located. Maybe you want a song, I don't know, any kind of song. The song is going to be popped out from the database, like chosen from the database, goes back to the web server and then to the browser, and it will show us the page with the result, with the video, in this case, the song. Here down, we can see the most used backend technologies: Java, PHP, Ruby, Python, SQL, and JavaScript. Everyone has a different opinion about which languages are used in backend, but I've done a little research and these are the most used one. So, are there any questions? No, okay. So I'd like to use this image to represent, front end and back end, because we as user see this, it's basically what we see, like the beauty, the mermaid with the beautiful hair and so on, and the back end, because maybe it's a dinosaur, it's something I really like to use to explain how front end and back end are different from each other. So moving on to the most used technologies. So we have PHP, JavaScript, and Java. PHP, it stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. It's a server-side scripting language, which means we as client, as user, we don't see, the processing happening in the server. We receive only the output, like I said before with the song. So the processing is done by using the resources on the server before they are getting back to us, to the client. So basically, I've said that JavaScript is front-end language. Yeah, it's basically both. It's also front-end and back-end. It's part of a development stack, so we use it on the both side. Backend developers use a type of JavaScript called Node.js. It's a library, basically, a framework, allows a developer to handle data updates from the front end, and then build a scalable network that is possible, like to build scalable network applications that are able to process. You can process with this many simultaneous user requests, among other things in the web, in the backend side. So if one user is going to get one data from the database where that data is stored, like YouTube is accessed many times a day by a lot of people. So you need to have this JavaScript, this framework that handles the many requests this site receives during the day, during all the working force that it has. So Java is a commonly used programming language for development, especially on the server side. Well, it's also used, like in game development, in software development. So it's not only web specific language. It's used to create a web application that helps clients to interact with the server and access information, the so-called Java web application. It's used also to create the technologies behind this web application, like the servlet APIs, basically. It's used to create basically APIs. We'll see later what APIs are, so stay tuned. Basically, here we have the second part of the most used technologies. We have Ruby. It's also a dynamically typed and object-oriented programming language. It's mostly used for programming web applications, and it's the implementation of Ruby on Rails. The development framework we will talk about later. Python is an interpreted object-oriented high-level programming language with dynamic semantics. It's basically, in web development, it's basically used to build server-side web application because it's, it's executed on the server, never on the front end, always on the server. We have SQL, stands for Standard Query Language. It's basically the language we use for dealing with relational databases. It allows us to access and manipulate data and perform functions such as insert data, search data, updating, deletion of database records, all this data handling stuff. Before we can talk about full stack web development, I want to explain to you what is a tech stack, so you understand the term full stack. What is a tech stack? It's a combination of technologies we use to build and run an application or project. It typically consists, here we can see, of web pages, the web application, the access layer, the connection, basically, it's the connection from the client to the server. That's the access layer. The database where the data is stored, and the server architecture. It's typically, like I said, it consists of programming languages, frameworks, database, front-end tools, back-end tools, and application connected via APIs. So here we can see full stack web development. As I said before, it refers to both the front end and the back end. So here we have the front end, the client side. We have our browser with the three main core technologies that are used to build web pages. And we also have user's phone because also a user with phone access the internet. So we have the native application, like said, Google Chrome, and so on. Then we have the internet, and we have the server side that consisted of the server, and behind we have the framework, the language. In this case, we can just say Java, script, or Ruby for the backend. Then the database, that will be SQL, the web server, and the operating system on the server handling all this functioning stack. What is an API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. It's basically a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. I want to give you here an example of what it is, because let's say you are at a restaurant So, and you're ordering food. So the waiter, we are sitting at the table and the food is going to be prepared in the kitchen. So the waiter is our API because he communicates us with me that I'm sitting at the table and with the kitchen. And he delivers my order to the kitchen then prepares it, and the order gets back to me, the meat, the food, the meal I've ordered. That's basically how an API works. We have here the application client. So if you're requesting, like the YouTube page, the API takes our request, gets to the server, the data source. Then the server responds the site, maybe YouTube, to the API, and the API gets back to us with the, like the page, the song we were searched for. What is a framework? Is a platform or a software framework that provides a foundation for developing web application and website. It has a collection of libraries and modules that support the development process. So we're going to see a few one. I've chosen 3. I've made a research, and these were the used one. There are a lot of others like Vue, Angular, and so on. But I've chosen these 3 because they were simple, because they were complete frameworks. So let's just see them together. So the first one is Django. It's a high-level framework. It's developed with everything any developer would require. So it has a complete package. You don't need to install, like third-party softwares or maintaining softwares that are going to, like maintain this software, because it really has everything inside of it. Like I said, everything in the framework functions together. It is ideal for the development of large-scale database-driven interactive web applications like YouTube, like Facebook, because they're really big one sites, like really. And okay, it's also highly customizable and scalable because you can really customize it to the needs you have. If you want, a specific function to have, maybe you want to, like, how can I say, you want to a specific group of users be maybe, I don't know, allowed to do something, you're going to use Django because it's really usable and customizable in this specific part. It has a really extensive community and documentation, and it facilitates the best web development framework because it's easy to use and it's really, really customizable, like I said. We have Laravel, one of the best frameworks for backend development. It has an excellent language construction because it has the capability to suit Django groups and effectiveness of its advanced toolbox. It has a lot of functions. You can implement a lot of stuff with Laravel. I have not used it before, but in the future, I want to for a project I'm working on. So if you want to know which project, you can connect with me and I will keep you updated about this. I would love to share with you my insights and my project. It's based on PHP language with expressive, elegant syntax. It allows web developers to be flexible and creative while taking care of the background. Unlike any other frameworks, it's really good because it's also easy to use and it has almost everything built in. Instead, I wrote that Laravel makes the process of upgrading fun and simple. The last one of the top 3 backend framework is Ruby on Rails. It's written obviously in the Ruby language, and it's of course a server-side web application framework. It combines Ruby, JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to develop dynamic applications. And it works on the convention over configuration principle that facilitates in making assumptions about what developers require to get the new web application started. So it has like a starter pack. This allows us developers to achieve more while writing fewer code. So basically, I've decided to talk about these 3 frameworks because they're really simple. Like really, if you are on, like a junior developer and you want to, like, you want like, start backend, I mean, it's always good to learn front end first because you cannot just start with a back end. It will be too complicated. First, have a good understanding of front end and then move on to the back end. But if I would like to choose to learn some of the frameworks, I will definitely start out with one of them, one of these, because they're really built-in, simple, easy, and fun, and really to manage the site. When you create a site with them, it's really also really easy to manage. So let's move on to the what is React.js. It's basically a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. These are the main benefits of React.js. It has a virtual DOM, document object model manipulation. I will talk later about what that means. It has reusable components like the frameworks we talked about earlier. It's open source, so you can modify the code. You can just, like take the code and modify it if you need. What do you need, like to do? And it has built-in developer tools. The updates are really easy to take. You don't have to download, like a lot of different third-party software to update React.js because it's only one update and it's always up to date. And it's easy to use, of course, because for developers, if the things are easy to use, that's the, like the best thing for us. We're moving on to Bootstrap. So, what do you think Bootstrap is? It's basically a collection of reusable bits of code written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it's also a front-end development framework because it has all these three technology put together. So it enables developers to quickly build fully responsive websites. Like, I can show you one example later. Let me just give you the main benefits of Bootstrap. It's responsive. It's cross-browser compatibility. That's sometimes not so easy to manage because I've developed once a site that was really hard to maintain, like really, because on Mozilla, it was showing up in some kind way. In another was in Google Chrome, was it showing in another way. So if you're developing with Bootstrap, you're sure that it's really going to be cross-browser compatible. So you wouldn't have to struggle with, like design it for Mozilla, like design it for Google Chrome and so on. It's going to be really nice and smooth on every browser you choose to use for web development. It has a really short time development because it's, like I said, easy to use. You have on the site, on the Bootstrap site, you have like a lot of pre-built functions and pre-built code that you can use for your project. So it's really good. It's flexible, like I said, because you can really put it everywhere in a basic site, in which site you want. And it has really a feature-rich core because it contains HTML and CSS. So definitely check it out. I will show you the project later. Yeah, I wanted to talk about a little bit about my journey into web development, how it all started. So last year, I always been passionate about tech since I have, like computer science certification. But I really wanted a job in tech since I was a kid, really. So I started last year my journey into web development with my She Codes workshop. It was a really cool site. I found it out on YouTube. They were sponsoring, like this She Codes, like She Codes page. And I said, that could be interesting. They were giving an hour of free coding camp. And I said, yeah, sure. I want to try this out. Let's see if web development is something for me, something I want to, like work in the next future. So I tried it out and I really was surprised because web development is really something cool. You can be creative, you can be, like have your own imagination of creating projects. You can be really you can be everything. You can create whatever you want if you know the technologies. If you know what will I use here, what will I use there, you're going to make amazing sites. What What other resource I used? I used ZTM Academy. Andrei Niagoy is an awesome developer. I learned a lot from him. He's really one of the best, really. I can recommend the ZTM Academy enough because he's really, really a really good software engineer. So I then moved on to ZTM Academy, and I've done the full, there is a complete web developer bootcamp. You can try it out. It's really good. You're going to build a lot of projects. And there was the moment where I was really passionate about web development because I really got into it. And, I really wanted to know more about, I wanted to go over to the full stack. So I then joined Treehouse, learned something from Free Code Camp, Frontend Masters, and Educative.io. In fact, I'm continue to studying now on these 4 platforms since I'm not a software engineer yet. I mean, I'm not really, really an expert in web development, but I'm going to continue my journey. I want to be a full stack developer. And I hope that these 4 resources can help me out. Treehouse is surely one of the most used. It's a bit expensive, but I really like it because you're going to build 9 projects, really, and you are going to really get the understanding to what you do. So feel free. I'm going to leave you the sites of these companies, so you can definitely check them out if you want to know more about web development. So yeah, Free Code Camp is like the word said, it's free. You have basically, it's a coding environment with, like text. Basically here it says what you need to do. And then you have the middle side where you have to do, like the coding environment. So it's really interactive. The same one is educative. Educative, it's you don't have any videos there. You just have to read, and then you have coding environment. So feel free to check that out too. And Frontend Masters is a video-based site where to learn front-end web development, also backend, because they have a lot of, backend frameworks and APIs. So feel free to check them out. I will give you the link. They have a free bootcamp. If you'd like to join the bootcamp, you can. It's absolutely free. You just have to log in with email and password, and it's you will have 21 plus hours of coding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the 3 main core technologies for frontend. So definitely check that out. I must say I've also used Pluralsight and Udemy, but I wasn't really, happy with them because, I mean, Pluralsight, yeah, it's a great platform to learn. Don't get me wrong, but most of the stuff was quite outdated, so I wasn't really, happy with that because in web development you need to learn the latest technologies. Because if you're going to learn something old, that's not good. That's not good because you're going to program with old things, with old, stuff and text and functions, and you need to be up to date in front-end development, in web development in general. So Udemy was really good because I find some courses of Cold Steel's bootcamp. I also found Andre there, and I found also another guy that I've chosen a course from, always web development. So Udemy is really good. You have to check that out. But if you want, a class feel, like where you have schedules and projects, definitely check out Treehouse. It's really good. I can only recommend it. Here you can find the sites I mentioned before. So Team Treehouse, Educative.io, and Frontend Masters. This is Andre's blog where you can find a lot of information about web development, the newest technologies, like the newest technologies in web development in Python and also machine learning. CSS Tricks is a very good site for CSS. There is, support. You find support. You find the syntax, the CSS syntax, if you have trouble when programming your pages. So it's really good. Definitely check it out. And I have also put a developer community here. You have to, if you're a web developer, you need in some way stay up to date. So this developer community, it's really good because you're getting also resources, you're getting coding snippets, you really get a lot of stuff and you're up to date, so you can really enjoy, like this profession to be a web developer. And I really love it. I mean, sure, I will send you the links. The slide, I will reach out to the Women Tech community and send you the slides, if that's okay for you. And yeah, I just want really to thank you so much for joining me today. You can get in touch with me, like I said, on Twitter and LinkedIn. If you have questions, I will be very happy to answer them. I'm going to give you the link for the bootcamp if you want. This is the bootcamp I was talking to you about. It's the free bootcamp from Frontend Masters. You have 21 plus hours of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So definitely check it out. I'm going to put the link here in the chat, so you can definitely about the slides. I'm going to send you the slides, no problem. I'm going to reach out to the Women Tech community and share with all of you the slides. And yeah, if you have other questions, just let me know in the chat. We have 9 minutes to go, so I will be happy to answer anything. What would I say? Okay, if you would like to advise a young girl who wants to start her career in web dev, what would I say? Well, I would like to say start with front end. Don't start with backend. Don't start with, like frameworks, API. Start with front end. Start with HTML and CSS. And I would definitely check out some of the sites I mentioned. I'm going to also give you the sites. So just a sec. Well, if I'm going to share with you the presentation, I will give you the sites, so you can just click on them. So I will definitely reach out to the community to ask about the slides. And yeah, what I would recommend to you, I would definitely recommend you, like, I'm sorry, I just got interrupted because I read the question. I will definitely recommend to you to start with a Treehouse if you want to, like begin the web development career, because they have great resources for beginner. Front end, you can do, the bootcamp I mentioned, but don't start with Frontend Masters, like the real course, because they're not going so deep into the beginner basics, the basic HTML and so on. So definitely check out Treehouse, definitely check out educative.io if you want to start your journey into web development. Okay, Selena says, do you think PHP is still popular and a good backend language? Some sources say that PHP is slowly dying. Yeah, I know about that. I wasn't either sure or which I should put it into the presentation or not, but I decided to, because we should know that PHP was a really good backend language. And I think it's like you said, Selena, it's not really popular anymore. They are focusing, like on backend is focusing on Python, on the frameworks, on the JavaScript backend. So Python is really slowly dying. In fact, I'm on my way to full stack web development. So definitely I would not invest my time so much into PHP. I will try to learn it, like the syntax to know, but not get into too deep, because I want to learn the newest technologies that are basically JavaScript, the frameworks, Python, and so on. I wouldn't focus so much on PHP though, but I wanted to mention it because it was a great backend language. So can you recommend to start with full stack, or it is better to start by focusing on front end? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the question. Yeah, sure. You have to start with front end, because it's not possible, like to start with a back end, because backend it's too difficult, or with full stack. I aimed to be a full stack at the beginning, and it was really frustrating because you have to learn, like a lot of languages. Start with front end, start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then you can, like move on to backend and then full stack. Basically, full stack is the two things, front end and backend together. So you have to start with front end. Can you tell again about tech stack in brief? I missed it out. Thank you. Sure. So a tech stack, what is a tech stack? I'm going to show you the slides just to help you out, just to make it bigger so that I can help you out. Basically, the tech stack is a combination of the technologies we use, basically a combination of front end and back end. That is what's going to make, like the full stack, the complete stack, the front end and the back end. In fact, here in the slide, we have everything. We have the front end and we have the back end with the server architecture. Just, like from the data access layer to the server, that's back end. Web pages and web application, that's still front end. So it consists, like I said, of programming languages, framework, database. It's at the server side. It consists basically of, like front-end tools. So the three main technologies: HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And at the backend, it's consisted of frameworks, JavaScript, server-side language, SQL, and so on. I hope, Samiksha, that answers your question. Hope. In case, let me know. We're happy to, like talk more about it. No, if you know, well, like if you know Django, you're not the full stack developer, Alicia, because you need to know like also SQL, the database part, and a bit of the server architecture. I'm sorry, my English isn't too good. So I'm sorry, you're not a full stack developer. You will need to learn a bit more. Maybe you have, like you have a framework, Django, but you're not a full stack because you need to know at least like a JavaScript backend. But if you know JavaScript backend, maybe some API and like the SQL language, because you need to know how the server accesses the database and how the response gets back, like to the client. It full stack and tech stack the same thing. Yeah, basically, yeah, Samiksha, it's the same thing, because it's a tech stack, like you have, it's a stack. Basically, you have front end and back end together. So basically, stack, it's called full stack. So you have the full stands for front end and back end. So full stack and tech stack. I mean, the tech stack for web development, it's the same thing. Yeah. Revati, what are the basic skills that should someone from a process to get into web development? I mean, all the stuffs you learn in CS degree. It's a degree in computer science, useful to learn the basics. Would you suggest any online degree program? Well, I don't have any, like computer science degree. I am only a computer science operator, so I haven't, like seen and gone to any university. So I will definitely recommend, like starting with front-end development, like I said to Samiksha. And I would, like not focus too much, like on algorithms and so on. Maybe that if you, like if you've gone to an university and if you learned it at the university, that's fine. But for front-end, you don't need to know, like algorithms and so on. You just need to know basic math, and that's it. Because for JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, you don't have to, like know algorithms. If you want to go over to the backend and to the full stack, I would recommend, some courses. But an online degree program, no, I wouldn't recommend that. Alicia, I don't think so. How do I learn server architecture? I do know SQL actually. Well, if you know SQL actually, and you have also Django Foundation, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then you are a full stack developer. If you have the basic knowledge of this, you surely are. I think we run out of time, guys. It has come to an end. I would love to, like answer all the questions. Feel free to, like contact me on LinkedIn. I would happy to answer all of the questions. If you want to stay in touch, like and thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure for me to talk about it. I'm sorry if that I didn't answer, like all the questions. Hope you enjoy your conference, and I will see you maybe another time. And please, if you want, stay in touch with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And thank you so much. Bye, guys. Have a nice day. Bye.